Welcome everyone, and hopefully it'll be a welcome back to part 3 of my guide and showcase for the EZServer. If you haven't watched part 1 or 2 yet, I suggest that you watch those two parts first. Actually, the part 2 is not showing up here right now. It's just because I'm currently uploading it, but it'll be visible once this video has been released for you. So make sure you watch part 1 and 2 before you get into this part, number 3. And in the previous part, we went through the Epic 1.5 to Epic 3.0 progression. And we went through the first the first custom zone on our server, EZServer, called QVIC. And QVIC is it's actually the first zone where you actually need to collect all the armor for all your classes, because today I'm going to show you the following tiers. And one of the things that you need to keep in mind when you are working on QVIC and moving on eventually to the next tier, which is Kha'Zix Tool or Orthocrax, is that you need the previous tier's armor to get the new armor. So basically that works out like this. Once you get like, take for instance my warrior here. When he was in QVIC, I had to make sure that he collected all his armor from there, because when I had finished the QVIC quest and visited the level up wench to get level 71, so I could visit these two new zones here. Then when I got to these new zones, the bosses there drop armor patterns, and you will need to combine those patterns with the previous instance or zone's armor to get a new one. So basically, to make the armor of Kha'Zix Tool or Orthocrax, you need to combine those armor patterns with the armor you got from QVIC. So it's important that you have picked up all the armor from QVIC first before moving on to Orthocrax or Kha'Zix Tool. So I'm mentioning two instances here now, and the reason is Kha'Zix Tool was the original instance that was next after QVIC, but at some point we had a game master who wanted to, have a go at making content for the server, and that's why Orthocrax was made, which is basically the same as Kha'Zix Tools, just a different zone, different mobs. Some of the non-mandatory, I should say, loot is a bit different in these two zones, so you can try out both of them, but they will both you can choose which one of these you want to progress through. They will both drop the stuff you need to move on to the higher tiers on the server. Before entering these instances, I wanted to talk a little bit about items again, because in my previous video, I think the first part is the part where I mention the Crafter's Guild quest and that and the items that you can get in here, and so I want to talk a little bit about loot. So last video I showed you QVIC, but I did not talk too much about the loot that we can get in here. So basically, all the custom zones have essences, and these essences are very important. These essences, you can see here on the wiki, they're used to make the ultimate weapons, the Shield of the Ages, both of which I showed you in the first part of this video guide. Also some of the other stuff here. So make sure that you collect these essences from each tier, so that you can at some point start to make some of the really nice and useful gear that is needed at some point to get further. Also, there's one more item that I wanted to, let you guys know about, and that is the Gemstone of the Ages. The Gemstone of the Ages drops from Cubic and all up to the last tier. Even the off tiers like Sleeper's Tomb, Vision's Peak, that's the latest tiers on the server, and these are very valuable. In the beginning, if you're a new player, many of the new players, they don't really have the resources to focus on this early on. So quite often, newer players just trade these off for something that is more useful for them in the early stage of the game. So you can trade these with higher level players and get some stuff that you need, like maybe some essences to make your first ultimate weapon or something like that. But take good care of these. Make sure you loot them, and I would recommend trading them with higher level players for essences and stuff like you need. So, but we're done with Cubic. So, whenever you have made your 3.0 quest complete with Odin, and you have completed all the visible armor pieces in Cubic, it's time to move to Orthocrax or Kha'Zix Tool for the next tier. And I'm just going to choose Kha'Zix Tool now. Like I said, you can choose which one of these you wanna choose for progress. So you can farm in both, really, if you want to that as well. So okay, here we are in Kha'Zix Tool, and if you used to play live EverQuest, you may know this zone already. It has the same mobs, just the different loot tables. So basically, while killing the mobs and bosses in here, you will get armor patterns, and the armor patterns will have to be combined in a magic box along with the armor that you got from Cubic. And when you complete that, you make the new armor from Kha'Zix Tool or Orthocrax. So and you also need to collect all these armor pieces from Kha'Zix Tool or Orthocrax before moving on to the next tier, which is Plane of Dragons, because once you get to Plane of Dragons, there's going to be new armor for you to collect. But you cannot make that armor unless you have this armor. So the armor follows itself up from tier to tier. So make sure that you get all the visible armor pieces for your characters here in Kha'Zix Tool or in Orthocrax before you move to Plane of Dragons. So many of you are probably familiar with this zone, so I'm not going to spend too much time showing it. We can take a quick trip to Orthocrax. Okay, so I'm just making a raid instance now because my summoner was on cooldown, so this is just the fastest way for me to do it now. So this is Orthocrax, and this is one of the newer zones, and it's basically all the same as Kha'Zix Tool. It's just a different zone, different mob. So it's like the equivalent of Kha'Zix Tool. Yeah, so you can just basically choose which of these you want to which one you want to go to. But there is one loot I should mention. That is the Juniper Ring, which has a clickable buff that adds like some hit points. So you may want to go in here and get this ring for your tank. This ring doesn't drop in Kha'Zix Tool, it only drops in this zone. So this is probably a good place to at least visit before moving on to the next tier, which is Plane of Dragons. So as you can see here, we have many of the same mobs as you would have in Kha'Zix Tool, but there are some unique mobs and bosses in here that you won't find in in Cassie Tool. So, you know, you might want to check out both of these zones. If I can get my large barbarian through here without shrinking too much, you may get a small glimpse of the zone. I think it's kind of cool zone, really. So I like it much better than Cassie Tool. It's much, well, you know, with the exception of the beginning there, it is quite easy to navigate through here, even with many tunes. You have a large area here where you can move around quite easily and farm this stuff. In Cassie Tool, there are a lot more narrow spaces and stuff. So yeah, I would probably recommend going here and farming this place instead of Cassie Tool for your armor, so that you can move on to Plane of Dragons eventually. I guess that is it for this tier. Once you have gone through this zone, collected all the armor pieces, it is time to move on to Plane of Dragons. So let me just kill these here first, quick. Okay, so let's move on then. Plane of Dragon. Let's see if my summon teleporter is not on cooldown anymore. Okay, so moving on. Here we have Plane of Dragons, and as you can see, it's level 71 required. So you basically need to finish the Cuic quest, and then you can eventually turn in the Epic 3.0. And you can hail the level of Wench, obviously, to get into Cassie Tool Orthocrax, and then into Plane of Dragons, which is the place we're going right now. So let me just finish off this one here, and then we go to Plane of Dragons. The zone is called Post Storms, short name, so you can type that in as well, and you don't have to go through the custom menu. So welcome to Plane of Dragons. I'm not going to go into a great detail about this zone, but I'll give you a quick run through of this zone, and then we'll move on to the last zone that I'm going to show you in this part of the guide. So here in Plane of Dragons, we have dragons, obviously, and let's just go through the one of the mobs here at the entrance that I was going to cover, because or maybe actually I can do that afterwards. Let's just move in here, and I'll show you. Let me just speed up this a little bit, so we don't have to. Okay, so as you can see, Plane of Dragons has a lot of dragons here you can kill, and they will drop. Some of these dragons will spawn some named bosses, and these bosses, when they are killed, they will drop some crystals. I'm not sure if I have any crystals on me, but they will drop an item, some crystals, water, fire, earth, and ice. So 4 different crystals, and the fire and the water crystals are the ones that you will need first, because once you have killed these dragons and kill the bosses that spawns off them, and you have collected crystals, you can hand in the crystals to these Tikis here. Let me just see if I have I can see if I have one of these crystals lying around now, just so that we can spawn one and see what it looks like. Okay, so we have a few here, so we can. I'll just put these in my inventory, and I'll show you exactly how this works. Once you have killed the dragons and the bosses that spawns off them, and collected the crystals, you can just go over to the Tiki. This is the water Tiki, so you hand him the water crystal, just one, and it'll spawn a boss. So here we have HoH. And once you've killed him, you will have to loot him, and he will drop a pattern. And it's the same deal here as in casting tool. You need to have the casting tool armor, and you have to put it in your magic box and combine it with this. And once you have done that, you will have the Plane of Dragons tier 1 armor. And there is another Tiki here as well, which I can show you real quick. If we move over here, I'm just gonna speed things up a bit, see if I can control my carpet here. Might as well just take it off in here. So moving down here through the water, we'll get over to the other side where there is another Tiki, which is the fire Tiki. Where you can do the same as I just showed you, only you have to use the fire tikis, the fire crystals, I mean. Oh, come on. So in here, over here should be the, yeah, here's the fire tiki. So whenever you get a fire crystal, you can turn it into this tiki and get some more armor pieces. Then we have to move on a bit because there are 2 more tikis. You should not focus on them before you have farmed the fire and the water tiki like I showed you now. But once you've done that and you have, you know, gotten all your armor pieces, it's time to move on to, if I can find the entrance over here, it's time to move over to the section where you find the tier 2 armor. And that is a completely different area of Plane of Storms. So we can see some Quorum models here. Anyways, just some of, as you can see here, some of these mobs drop, spawn the chests here, which has some money items in it. So make sure you loot that up, and then moving on, we can find a Tiki over here. This is the Earth Tiki, where you summon the tier 2 bosses that drops the tier 2 armor. And there is one last over here, and that is the Ice Tiki, where you hand in the come on, super fast this carpet, where you turn in the ice crystals and you spawn the tier 2 bosses. I can do one here just to show you. And these tier 2 bosses, this is the main boss actually, Kronos. Kronos is the one that drops the breastplate, so it's the best item. So, and he's also the most rare of the bosses. So as you can see here, he drops as the patterns as well, but this is the tier 2 pattern. But one thing that I should mention here is that the tier 2 bosses also may drop a dragon class chest slot. And while this mold is specifically for paladins, you can use this one to create a multi-class chest. So basically, this is one of the patterns that you can use for all your classes, regardless of what class they are. You can use them to create the armor pieces. One more thing I should mention is the molds. When you kill the mobs in here and you get these chests that spawns, they will drop molds, and they are and also here's an example of that. So we can use this as an example. This is the Dragonor for the Shadow Knight. So this is also something that you need to put in your magic box to combine and make the armor. And you know, all this is in great detail in the wiki page as well. So I'm just kind of going quite fast through it now. And you can see here is also one of the names that can spawn when you kill the dragons in the zone, and they drop the crystals which you have to pick up and use to spawn the bosses that drops the armor. So that is the quick way I'm just going to repop just so that I can get back to the... okay, I'm in a public zone. Okay, so I'm just going to do this instead. And we'll get back to the zoning because there's one more thing that I wanted to show you. And that is the rot bot or whatever it's called. There is an NPC here, yeah. Basically, what you can do here is you can hand in, like, if you have a warrior and you got, like, and he needs plate patterns to create his armor. And if you get, like, leather armor or chain armor, you can basically switch them in here with this NPC. And he'll take like 2 class type patterns and return the type of patterns that, you know, is appropriate for your character, which in my case would be the plate patterns. So he is, you know, great for making sure that, so just make sure that, you know, when you kill the bosses in here at the Tikis, make sure, even though it doesn't necessarily, you don't necessarily need all the armor, make sure you loot it anyway, but because you can turn it in here and switch it to the equivalent armor of your class. So that only counts for the tier 1. You cannot do that with a tier 2 armor like I showed you down with the last 2 Tikis, the ice and the earth Tikis. But down there you have, like I showed you, the dragon multi-class patterns, which all classes can use. So yeah, that is Plane of Dragons for you. And once you have, you know, completed all the tier 1 and tier 2 armor down here in this zone, after you've done that, you can move on to the next instance. Alright, so moving on. Before we go to the next tier, let's just go through some of the things that you should have been doing to get to the next tier, which is Halls of Honor. And before you can enter Halls of Honor, you have to be level 72. And to get leveled up to level 72 at the Level Up Wench NPC, you have to do all the stuff that we've covered so far in these guide parts videos. So basically, after you have completed Cuvic, you have gotten your armor, and you've completed the quest that you get from the quest NPC in Nexus, then you get the epic augment, because now the epic weapons turn into augments instead, and will continue to do so for the remaining time of your leveling up on the server. So you need to get your 3.0, and once you've done that, you have to go through the Cassie tool or the Orthocrax zones and gather your armor there. And once you've done that, you have to go to the Plane of Dragons. You have to combine your Cassie tool armor with your Plane of Dragons armor. And once you've gathered all the tier 2 armor from Planes of Dragons, like I just showed you with the Tikis, then you are ready to move on and get leveled up. So then you just go back to the Level Up Wench and you hail her, and you'll get flagged for Halls of Honor and Plane of Air. And basically, Plane of Air is an extension of the Halls of Honor zone. I'll get into that a bit in a bit. And also, I will also be showing you another optional, well, it's not really optional, but it is kind of optional for progression anyway. But it is definitely a zone you want to visit. And now that you are a level 72 and ready for Halls of Honor, that's definitely the right time to visit the Tower of Frozen Shadows as well. So I'm going to get into some details on that in a little bit. But let's just move back in game now first. I'm now in Halls of Honor. I just made my own instance here, and there are 2 things mainly that you're looking for here. First off, it's the 3.5 incomplete epic book. And to get the incomplete epic book in this zone, you have to kill a name that's called Shadow. Shadow drops the incomplete 3.5 epic book, and as it has been with the previous epic books, you need to fill the epic book with 10 pages, which you will find off the mobs in the zone. So killing the mobs in here will drop the pages, and then killing Shadow will drop the incomplete epic book that you will need to combine the pages and make the 3.5 epic book. So that is one of the main things that you need to do in the zone. When it comes to Shadow, he is not a triggered spawn, he is a timed spawn, which means that when you enter the zone, you have to wait 30 minutes and then he'll spawn, regardless of you killing any mobs. You don't need to do anything. You can just, you can just get into the zone, go AFK and get back in 30 minutes, and he'll be up, and then you kill him. So then you have to run around in the zone after that and kill all the different mobs in here and get the pages that you need to get your epic 3.5 completed. So I'm just gonna go real quick through some of the mobs here. We have some earth elemented and we have some air. We have different mobs here. As you can see, some of them are called avatars of earth, some are avatars of storm, and so on. So as you probably have guessed already, they drop different pages. So you basically just have to walk around in here and kill these mobs and loot them, and when you get all the pages, you'll just combine them and you're good to go with the epic 3.5. There is also one more important thing in here, and that is coins or tokens, because killing the mobs in here will drop, and they will drop tokens when you loot them. Not always, but sometimes they'll drop tokens, and the tokens is your way of getting the next tiered armor pieces. So basically, after having killed a lot of the mobs in here and you have stacked up a lot of these tokens, then you can move on to Plane of Air, which is the place where you will use these tokens to spawn bosses. These bosses have the armor pieces, both the tier, it has a tier 1 armor for Plane of Air, and it has a tier 2 armor. So you need to farm both, and I'll get into that in just a bit. Just get off the carpet here and let's move over to Plane of Air. So I'll just hail here and we'll check the list and we'll see Plane of Air. So moving up to Plane of Air, after you have gathered these tokens, I hope I have some in my inventory here. I think I do. Okay, so we have some here. So I'll just load these in here and I'll give you a quick rundown on how these work. So this is Plane of Air, and this is, like I said previously, this is just mainly an extension of Halls of Honor, and this is where you will spawn the bosses using these tokens that you have looted off the mobs in Halls of Honor. So basically what you need to do is you need to go over to the observer of the sky, and this is where you want to have a character parked here, or actually you don't need that anymore, never mind that. I forgot that there has been some changes. Previously you had to turn these into the NPC to spawn the bosses, but now you can just hail this guy and you can teleport down, and this will be the spot where the bosses spawn. So what you do here is you get a decent spot here, and you have one of your characters to right click on these tokens. And as you can see now, we have spawned the Tranquil. This is one of the bosses that you kill to get your armor, which is required to get to the next tier, which will be tier 5. So killing these They will also spawn some ads. And killing these, they will drop the patterns. And again, as it has been previously, you need to combine these patterns with the armor you got from Plane of Dragons. The tier 2 Plane of Dragon armor will combine in the magic box with these patterns to create the new armor set. So one more thing to keep in mind. There are two types of bosses here, like T3 and T4 bosses. So this is the tier 3 bosses. But if you take two of these coins, actually, I cannot do that in this book. Let me, just a second. Just a second. I can't even do this. All right, that was not intended. Let's just move this around then. What you need to do is you need to take two of these tokens, and if you combine them together, like you can see here, these are the Tranquil tokens. If you combine them together, they will fashion a new token called the Plaguebringer. And what this does is spawn a different boss entirely. This will spawn the tier 4 armor dropping bosses. So combining two tokens of the same type will spawn the tier 4 bosses. And you will need, but first of all, you will need to spawn a lot of the tier 3 bosses using these coins, tokens. And once all your characters are equipped with a tier 3 armor, then you can start doing what I just showed you. By combining two of the same tokens, you can spawn the tier 4 boss. And killing the tier 4 bosses will result in the tier 4 mold, which are class specific, as you can see here. So basically you can combine these with the tier 3 armors so that you get from this zone. So that is how you farm the armor in Plane of Air. And there is also some other honorable mentions up here in Plane of Air. You can also get the Epic 4.0 book by spawning a boss called the NPC. You also spawn that boss by using one of these tokens that you will, receive from killing the mobs in Halls of Honor. So you have to return the completed Epic 4 to the Epic vendor along with 3.5 Epic book, and you'll get the upgrade for the augment. Also, there are some decent items in here that is worth mentioning. One of the items that drops here, I don't think I have it here anymore because I've recently gotten an upgrade. But one of the items that you really need for your warrior in here is a click item that makes you activate riposte, which will basically riposte all the incoming attacks you have. It's basically like this one. It'll have the effect of Furious Discipline. So that is a really nice item that you definitely want to get from the bosses that spawns here in Plane of Air. Also, you want to get the Monk and the Berserker click items that adds damage to your Monk and your Berserker. So you also want to have those. Along with, the essences. You have 2 new essences types here, which you need to upgrade your, a lot of things, like I've told you already, like the ultimate weapons and the Shield of the Ages and that. So you have to, loot all the, the essences here as well. You'll have the God's Minor and the God's Mayor essences, which will drop here off the bosses. So make sure you loot those as well. And also, I'm not sure if there's also some other stuff like there is a click item that has an AoE hate increase, stuff like that. So it's not just for your tier armor, it's also some other useful items for the different classes as well. So, but I'm not going to go into detail on everything because, you know, a lot of the fun is in figuring stuff out yourself and, you know, finding new items that will prove useful to you. Before we cut off this part of the video, I will end with one important zone, which I told you previously I was going to mention, and that is the Tower of Frozen Shadows. Alright, so here we are in in Temple of Frozen Shadows. I mean Tower of Frozen Shadows, and the reason, like I said, the reason why I want to show this is because of the timing. When you get to the point where you are visiting Halls of Honor and moving on to the Plane of Air to kill the bosses there, you want to pay a visit to this zone as well. I'm not quite sure how far up you will get, but you know, if you are familiar with live EverQuest and you played back in the days, you may know how Tower Frozen Shadow is set up. It's a zone with 7 floors, with a different boss on each floor, and the bosses drops the keys to get to the next floor in the tower. And there are 3 things mainly that makes this zone important when you're playing on EZServer. The first thing is the resistance augments, like the ones that I have in here, stones of heroic resistance. The higher up you get on the floors, the better the resistance is on them. And doing this before visiting Plane of Air can be very beneficial because some of the bosses in Plane of Air will throw some mean damage spell stuff on you that you may resist if you get somewhere between 3 or 4k resistances on your tank. So I really recommend going in here first and make sure that you farm up these resistant gems, and you can just socket them into your armor like I have here. Mine is fully upgraded now, but you can do that. You can combine several gems of the same rank to make a higher rank. So that is the first thing that you really want to do here, especially before moving up to Plane of Air to kill the bosses there. And another thing is, I told you in my first video guide about the Ultimate Charm quest line, and the first Ultimate Charm actually starts here in Tower of Frozen Shadow, because on the second floor in this area you will get these items. And you will have to use these items to create your ultimate charm, your first charm. And the other thing is, when you go to Halls of Honor, as I previously showed you, you will get another similar type of item that drops, which is the Guardian's Charm Upgrade version 2. So let me explain how this actually works. I'll explain it best, I think, by showing you the wiki, and here we have a picture of all the 4 ultimate charms that you can make on our server, and they are all really powerful. And I'll explain how to make this first charm. When you get to the Tower of Frozen Shadows, you will, on the second floor, you will get these 4 charms droppables. The Sorcerer Charm, Brawler, Oracle, and the Guardian's Charm. That will be this one. And when you've collected 25 of these Guardian upgrades, you can combine them together. Start by using the newbie, what is it called now? That flower I showed in the first video that you can buy them from the newbie vendors around here. I can just check this one just to, you know, so that you know, the newbie item version 2, you have to put that in the magic box and combine with these guardian charms. And these, you need 25 of these from the second floor in this zone. And when you've combined it together to get the Guardian's Charm rank 25, then you can start using the version 2 upgrades that you will find both in this zone and also in Halls of Honor. So at some point when you've gathered 50 of these, 25 of the rank 1 and then 25 of the rank version 2, then you will have a Guardian's Charm at rank 50. And you need the Guardian's Charm at rank 50 along with the Oracle, Brawler and Sorcerer's Charm at level 50. All 4 of them needs to be level 50, and then you can combine them in the magic box and make the Ultimate Charm version 1, the first one. So that is the second reason why you want to go in here and farm. And there is also a third reason, and that is the fact that all the bosses on each of the floors in Frozen Shadow will drop something called the Essence of Frozen Shadow. And these essences are needed to upgrade your ultimate weapon, which I showed you in a previous video. It's this weapon here, the ultimate weapon, and each time you want to upgrade this to a new rank, you need the Essence of Frozen Shadow and the appropriate rank. So when you want to upgrade your ultimate weapon from like rank 1 to rank 2, then you will need an Essence of Frozen Shadow rank 2. And so on. And on the last level, there is a really rare boss that you can trigger spawn, that drops a Master Essence, which you can use from levels from rank 7, and well, you can actually use it to any that Master Essence you can use for any rank, but from rank 8 and upwards, you can only use the Master Essence that drops in this zone. So that is the 3 main things that you need to do in this zone, and getting the resistances up and work on the first 25 ranks of the 4 different charms will be very useful for you, because you will, when you are farming Halls of Honor for the tokens for spawning bosses in Plane of Air and stuff, you will get a lot of these version 2 charm upgrades, and you cannot do anything with them before you've farmed 25 of the version 1 here in Frozen Shadows. So I hope that makes sense. I feel it was a bit awkward to explain, but you know, you may be better off just checking out the wiki page and read up on the charm upgrades here. There's a thread that's describing it a little bit, or you can just you know, ask questions in game. There's usually always someone around who knows how to answer. So yeah, that is a Tower of Frozen Shadows. And that's wrapping up the tier 4, and that will conclude this video, and the next part in my EZServer guides will cover the next 2 tiers, namely tier 5 and tier 6. Tier 5 is the zone called the Abyss, and it'll be quite interesting to explain that zone to you, because that is quite the notorious zone here on EZServer. So, and the tier 6 zone is called Anguish.